For a lot of people, the Backrooms starts with a picture that really should not be scary at all. There's no monster in it, no blood, no shattered glass, no dark figure standing at the end of a hallway. It's just a set of empty rooms washed in this faded yellow color, with stained walls, old carpet, and fluorescent lights overhead. Nothing is happening in the image, and still, almost everybody who sees it has the same reaction: get out. That's the mystery. Why does one bland, empty room make people feel like they've just seen a warning? The story of the Backrooms is not about a murder, a missing person, or some solved piece of internet trivia. It's about a modern myth that spread so fast and hit so many people so deeply that it stopped feeling like a joke almost as soon as it appeared. It felt more like a memory people didn't know they had. To understand why, you have to go back to 2019. That year, someone posted the now famous image online with a short block of text. It read like a rough warning passed from one stranger to another. The post said that if you were unlucky enough to no-clip out of reality in the wrong place, you'd end up in the Backrooms, surrounded by the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono-yellow walls, and the endless background noise of fluorescent lights. It described roughly 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms. And then it ended with the line people still remember: God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. That was it. One image, one paragraph, no polished story, no official author laying out rules chapter by chapter. Just enough detail to make the place feel real, and just enough space for your own brain to start filling in the rest. And the internet did what it always does when it finds an idea that taps into something deep. It built on it. People added maps, fake research notes, stories about levels, missing person reports, sound recordings, survival guides, warnings about creatures waiting around corners, found footage clips. The Backrooms spread sideways, not from the top down. It grew more like an urban legend than a normal story. One person added a detail. Another person said it reminded them of a place they'd seen before. Someone else swore they had dreamed about a room like that years earlier. That's when the Backrooms stopped being just a creepy image. It became a place. In most versions of the story, getting there is almost absurdly simple. There's no haunted mirror, no cursed object, no ritual. You just slip. 1 second you're walking through the world like normal, and the next second, reality glitches. The floor gives way where it shouldn't. A wall is suddenly not solid. You fall through the map of the world, like a character dropping through broken game geometry. And when you land, you're in level 0. That's the most famous version of the Backrooms. Endless yellow rooms, damp carpet, humming lights, no windows, no clear pattern, no sign that a human being designed the place for actual human use. It looks familiar, but wrong, like architecture remembered badly. At first, the emptiness sounds survivable. If you landed in an empty maze, you'd probably do what anyone would do: start walking, look for a door, a stairwell, an exit sign, a fire alarm, a crack of daylight, anything. But the whole terror of the Backrooms is that emptiness becomes the threat. Every room opens into another room. Every corner leads to more walls. The fluorescent hum never stops. Time gets slippery. Hunger and thirst creep in. Sleep turns risky. And then the worst thought settles in. What if this place isn't truly infinite? What if it's just big enough that you'll never make it out before your body gives up? That idea hit people hard, and not only because of the monster implied in that original paragraph. In fact, one of the strangest things about the Backrooms is that the creature is not really the center of it. The center is the setting itself. Most horror stories give you a threat you can name: a ghost, a killer, a thing in the basement. But the Backrooms takes places most people barely notice in everyday life and turns them into the nightmare. A hotel hallway, late at night, an office after everybody else has gone home, a school corridor during summer break, an empty convention center, a waiting room, a half-finished basement, a parking garage where the sound gets swallowed the second you move. People know those spaces, and a lot of people have had that brief moment where one of them suddenly feels off. Not dangerous exactly, just detached, like you're standing somewhere real, but not fully real, as if it was built as a copy of a human place and then abandoned before the copy was finished. The Backrooms takes that feeling and stretches it forever. As the myth grew, people started building out what they called levels. Some were industrial corridors. Some looked like flooded office spaces. Others turned into empty malls, ballrooms, tunnels, stairwells, apartment blocks, or indoor play areas. Each version had its own rules, its own dangers, its own logic. And oddly enough, adding more detail didn't weaken the idea. It made it stronger. Partly because there was never one single official version to lock everything down. The story stayed loose, messy, collaborative, alive. That gave it the same kind of energy old urban legends have. No one needs to fully prove it. No one needs to fully agree on it. The fact that people keep passing it around is part of what gives it power. Then in early 2022, the Backrooms changed again. A young creator named Kane Parsons uploaded a found footage Backrooms film, and for a lot of people, that was the moment the myth stopped living only in text and imagination. The video was framed like damaged footage recovered from somewhere it shouldn't have existed. A cameraman falls into this maze of yellow rooms and starts moving through them in confusion. The camera shakes. The lights buzz. Every long hallway feels too empty. Every pause feels wrong. And what made the video work so well wasn't just whatever might be chasing him. It was the silence before that. The nervous footsteps. The way the camera lingers at corners. The empty seconds where nothing appears, and that somehow makes it worse. It feels like the person holding the camera already understands that seeing nothing can be more terrifying than seeing something. Millions of people watched it. And suddenly the Backrooms was no longer just a weird internet post from a few years earlier. It had become one of the most powerful, shared horror images online. By that point, the interesting question had changed. It wasn't really, what is the Backrooms? It was, why does this get under people's skin so easily? Part of the answer is something people often call liminal spaces. A liminal space is a place that exists between one thing and another. Somewhere you're meant to pass through, not stay in. Hallways. Airports in the middle of the night. Waiting rooms. Empty classrooms. Escalators that aren't moving. Motel corridors. Places built for transition. When those spaces are full of people and purpose, they feel normal. Take away the people. Take away the purpose. Let the lights keep buzzing anyway, and suddenly the place starts to feel eerie. The Backrooms may be the purest version of that idea, a whole world made of transition with no destination at the end. There's another reason it hits so hard too. Older horror often lived in forests, graveyards, castles, storms, old houses at the edge of town. The Backrooms belongs to a different era. It comes out of office parks, commercial carpet, fluorescent bulbs, and the hum of outdated technology. Generic rooms, copy and paste interiors, and buildings so bland they almost stop feeling human. That makes the fear feel modern. It's not horror from the distant past. It's horror from the kinds of places people still walk through all the time. And under all of that is probably the deepest fear in the story. Not death exactly, disconnection. In the Backrooms there's no map, no signal, no outside world pressing against the walls to remind you that life is still happening somewhere else. If other people are there, they're too far away to help, or they're gone, or they've changed into something you wouldn't want to meet. The nightmare is the idea that reality can simply lose you. One second you belong to the world, the next second the world has no record of you at all. That's a terrifying thought, and it helps explain why people kept trying to solve the mystery behind the original image itself. Internet researchers and amateur detectives started tracing clues, trying to identify where the photo came from. They dug through archived listings, old interiors, office spaces, furniture leads, anything that might pin the image to a real location. Because if you can identify the room, maybe you shrink the fear. Maybe you can point to an address and say, that's all this is. But even when people got close, the mystery didn't go away. Because the image was never the whole engine of the story. The real force behind the Backrooms is the feeling it creates. You can test that for yourself. Walk through a building late at night after hearing about the Backrooms. Turn a corner. Notice the carpet change. Hear the fluorescent lights buzzing a little louder than they should. See the same doorway repeated down a hall. You may know perfectly well where you are, but for a split second, your body might not believe you. That tiny gap between logic and instinct is where the Backrooms lives, not in some proven hidden dimension, not in a confirmed supernatural event, in that moment when a familiar place stops feeling trustworthy. That's probably why the myth lasted when so many internet legends burn hot and disappear. The Backrooms doesn't ask you to decode a giant conspiracy. It doesn't need a complicated backstory. It asks for one much smaller surrender. Just admit that some places feel wrong. Once you admit that, the rest comes very easily. If a place can feel wrong, then maybe a place can be wrong. And if a place can be wrong, then maybe one bad step really could take you there. Maybe the fluorescent hum in an empty building is only electricity. Maybe that yellow hallway is just an office waiting to be remodeled. Maybe the next corner is only a corner. But the Backroom stays with people because it turns those ordinary spaces into a question mark. It suggests that reality is less solid than it looks, that the world might have seams, and that somewhere just under the surface, there could be something vast, repetitive, empty, and patient. So that's the real story of the Backrooms. Not a proven place, not a solved mystery, not one official tale with a clean ending. It began with a single unsettling image and a few lines of text in 2019. It grew through stories, theories, levels, and shared fear. It became even more vivid through found footage videos, especially the 2022 film by Kane Parsons. And years later, it still works for the same reason it worked the first time. It doesn't feel impossible. It feels almost familiar. And maybe that's the part people can't shake. Not the creature in the dark, not even the endless rooms. Just the idea that somewhere in a silent building, under bad fluorescent lights, the world could misfire for 1 second. And if it ever does, you may not get a second chance to turn around. As always, visit us at readtherealstory.com for more unbelievable true stories. Until next time, stay curious.